What is going on? There's always active construction outside my window. Among other things, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens in the alleyway behind my house. What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tierfon Orbital. I have been really looking forward to doing this video. This is going to be for my personal hilt. This is for a camera speeder from Phil over at Kalymian Customs Sabers. Every time I say this name, I know I'm getting it wrong. If someone, maybe Phil is probably going to just yell at me after doing this video. If someone could tell me how to correctly pronounce Kalymian, please let me know and yell at me. I know I'm probably butchering it. But anyway, this is the camera speeder from Phil. This thing is rad, you guys. This is an absolutely awesome speeder hilt. I feel like there needs to be a resurgence of speeder hilts. That's where I kind of got my start. One of my first builds was a speeder hilt. We need to see more of this. This thing is awesome. It's really cool. There are vintage camera parts in this that we will talk about in a little bit. It's big, it's chunky. There was plenty of room to play around with a hybrid chassis, which is what I did, right? So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this hilt. It sounds so good. It's a lot of fun to spin around. It's just an all-around great hilt. So we are going to come into Fusion and talk a little bit about the chassis. The chassis is just completely unnecessary. Again, over the top. I'm becoming the guy that puts doors on chassis, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. It's just unique. It looks cool, and yeah. So anyhow, there are some other unique design aspects of this chassis that I will also like to talk about. So with all of that out of the way, let's slow it down and come into Fusion. All right, so here we are in Fusion. Thanks for tagging along, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is. What were you thinking, Tim? Pay this no mind. We'll talk about this in a second. So here is the chassis. Listen, I already know that some of you were saying this is ridiculous, Tim. Like, all I want in my head, I just want a tube in my lightsaber. I'm totally fine with the tube. We're not totally fine with just tubes around here. We're not a just tube workshop. I like to do stuff that is just completely over the top and unnecessary, right? Who wants tubes anyway? It's 2025. You shouldn't be putting a tube in your lightsaber. Anyway, so here we are, right? One of the first things that you'll notice is this battery compartment. So this is the first time that I have broken up a battery compartment before. Okay, so these are actually three separate parts. Obviously, we've got this ribbed section that is in all brass. All right, this is where the speaker is held, and then the rest of the chassis is up top. I'm really starting to play around with the idea of doing a full brass or a full metal chassis, and this is kind of me taking baby steps towards that. And in doing this, I am once again reminded of how talented, but also patient, the folks over like Rick from Goth 3D, who does like these premium master level full brass chassis. I mean, there is so much that you have to think about beforehand when doing and designing a chassis like that. Like, are all the parts going to fit together? Or is it going to look like a cohesive product instead of just a bunch of just ribs? Like, you could probably make a giant chassis that's all ribs, but that's just not unique to me, and that's easy. It really is. I mean, it's easy to just design a bunch of ribs that are as long as a chassis. So, when I start doing these chassis, I'm just reminded at how talented the guys like Rick and Martin Beyer, of course, are. So, two of which I strive to get to that level of designing, right? Anyhow, so these are three parts. These ribs, let me see if I can pull this ribbed section out really quick. Okay. So you have to think of a few things, right? When doing these parts, again, like not only that they have to fit together correctly, right? But for like a part like this, I've got to have my wire channel, right? So I have my channel for my negative battery lead as well as my speaker lead. It goes all the way up through, all of the way up through here. Another thing that is going on back here is this trench. This is for a 2020 NeoPixel strip. Now, I asked fill to modify my grip by putting a machined slot in it, right? I wanted to get some shine through in this. Actually, Phil, I think, did this to his personal, and I really liked the way that it looked. So I had to put a 2020 NeoPixel strip on the chassis to give us that shine through, right? So that is what that other compartment is for. So once I receive all of my parts, you know, I go through my own quality control and I make sure everything fits together snugly. I make sure that I'm going to be able to get my wires up through there. And then this entire thing is just JB welded in place. Yes, that is not a very elegant solution, but it is a solution that works. JB Weld, once it is set, it is not going anywhere. So this whole section is JB welded in place, right? So I was pretty happy with how that came out, and it's very secure. I mean, I had to do some testing with putting a battery in, making sure that we're not going to like separate or anything. But again, really, really happy with the result on that one. And then on each side of the chassis itself, I've got some highly detailed greebly work. All right. So again, this is me trying to test the waters with doing a whole chassis in brass. And this is a lot of brass. Another thing that I have to think about constantly, right, is when you're doing heavily, like a lot of brass in a design, that also gets expensive. And I'm trying to meet at this intersection of a nicely designed chassis that looks decent, but also that is approachable price-wise, right? So in my opinion, in my personal opinion, you know, the master chassis and the Martin Beyer level chassis are up at the very top of the premium cost chassis builds for lightsabers, and they're expensive. I mean, I'm just going to call it how it is. They're expensive. So I'm trying to be in this middle ground between, you know, being super, super high premium, high price, and just like cheap tube chassis. I'm just trying to be in this middle ground because I do also want it to be approachable for people to have like a good looking metal chassis, right? So that's something that I have to constantly think about, right? Once you start getting with a lot of volume and a lot of material brass-wise, it gets pricey, right? So these are just panels. These are just brass panels that are epoxy to the side of my FD, like my main body of my chassis, which is all this black, right? But these are just greebly panels that I designed. I'm actually I really like how this came out, this panel in this section. These kind of look like knobs to me. I was looking at some camera parts, camera body housings when I was doing this, I remember, right? But you also have to figure out, you know, how to design this stuff that conforms around a radius, right? So none of it digs into the model. But essentially, those are just brass panels that are epoxy to the side of the chassis, and each side is mirrored, right? So each side is essentially the same. Okay. 2020 strip goes through here. I designed a resin lens, printed that in clear resin to go over the 2020 strip. Before I glue that down, I put a piece of Mylar as well just to help with a lot of that diffusion. On each side of that spine are rectangular LEDs. Another interesting aspect of this particular chassis design is this kill switch cap. So this is just a decorative brass cap that I ever so gently CA glued to the top of the switch, right? But I really like how that came out, and I think I'm going to try to do that a lot more with future builds. Just makes a kill switch look a little bit more fancy, all right? And then, of course, around front, we've got our doors. So listen, again, like there are going to be people watching this video that are saying to themselves, why? Just like, that's so dumb. It's so silly, Tim. It's so dumb. Nobody needs that. Well, this is my personal install, first of all. And I wanted that. I wanted to do something unique, something I'd never done before. These are gull wing doors. Let me see if I can flip one of these guys out. And because I want to talk about some of the intricacies that come with designing doors like this, and I know I've mentioned it before. So let's open this door up. Okay. So given the space, right, obviously you're going to see that like everything stops. If I could just learn how to navigate in Fusion, everything essentially stops here. So this goes into the upper body of the hilt, right? This has my emitter. It's got a hole for my switches. All right. So I needed to kind of hide and bury that profi board just underneath the lip of the threads. And it worked out perfectly, actually, because once both of these doors are open, you can pull this profi board up and out. You can kind of just tilt it out to get at your SD card and USB port. But yes, let's talk about these doors, man. All right, these were actually a challenge for me. So I've done flip down doors. I've done swinging open doors. And something that you always have to think about is clearances. I knew that I was going to just use a very simple hinge mechanism for this. So there's just a brass rod that goes into the model here, and it pokes up into this trench as well. And that is what holds that door in place. All right. Another thing that I wanted with these doors was clear windows. So I designed an insert. These are printed in resin or acrylic that I get from my 3D printer. Okay. My 3D caster. These are casts, not print, rather. So these are inserts. Both doors swing closed and are held in place with some neodymium magnets. These are like very small rectangular neodymium magnets, right? But once you swing this door closed, this window is going to start digging into the model. So like this is the kind of stuff that I have to think about when I'm designing. Like, and I don't always think ahead, right? So once I had these doors designed, I actually did a test print here, and the doors wouldn't swing closed because the windows were digging into the model, right? So I had to come back and make sure that I cut out, an area in the model to allow for clearance for these windows, right? And it just made it right before the profi, right before the soundboard. But yeah, I mean, listen, again, not necessary, but I like it. It looks cool. So swing open gull wing doors for this build. Up top, I've got 2 holes for my switches. So with this particular install, Phil also machined some 8mm lit tactile switches for me. I mean, he machined the edge of them just to make them fit a little bit more snugly in the build. And that is it, right? Why don't we come up top and get a look at this guy? Oh, one more thing before I forget. This is a speaker cap. So I actually did this to help enclose the speaker a little bit more, right? This was the test that I did. So the chassis fits fine in the grip. I wanted to play around with resonance. My buddy Benji is somebody who has always nailed down resonance, speaker resonance and sound resonance, in my opinion. And it's always important to kind of cup that speaker so there's no sound that is escaping around the edge of it, no air, okay? So once this was installed, it sounded great. And I was like, when I was swinging it around, you can kind of feel the vacuum of the speaker in here. Not the vacuum, but you can hear sound coming out of here. I'll talk about the vacuum in a second. So you could hear sound coming out. And I thought to myself, all right, maybe I could just help to make that sound venting and resonance a little bit more efficient, right? So that cup is at the very bottom of this pommel, and it helps to seal the edge around this speaker even more. And it butts right up against the lip of the speaker. So once I did that and tested again, it sounded incredibly more resonant. And I could actually feel the vacuum of the speaker in the grip. And that tells me that the speaker is working incredibly efficiently. And it sounded way better, way better, way better. It already sounded good. But putting that in there, it was a very interesting boost of sound resonance and clarity. But anyhow, all right. Enough of me talking about this chassis. Let's come up top. All right, so here it is. The camera speeder from Phil over at Kalymian Custom Saber. So this thing is super, super unique. I've seen, initially when Phil started posting like the idea of doing this hilt, I really liked the design. However, I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to pull the trigger on it. When I started to see that he was putting this vintage Leitz camera ring on here. I knew that I wanted one. I love seeing real world parts, vintage parts in builds. And I love that Phil figured out how to incorporate this into the design and still make it functional, right? So you can still rotate this ring. I'm going to call it a focusing ring because this is a speeder hilt, right? You can rotate this ring, right? I think that is so cool. It's just a great looking hilt with the copper neck in here. It gives it this awesome two-tone. The knurled grip, everything is just perfectly machined. It's just a really, really awesome hilt. So once I saw that, I knew that I wanted one. I reached out to Phil and I asked him if he had any left, and he said yes. So another thing that Phil did for me is route a channel in the grip, right? Perfectly clocked and perfectly aligned with these two switches, right? Everything that comes out of Phil's shop, it just looks great. The pommel looks awesome. The only modification that I did to this was add a pinstripe in here. I thought about pinstriping the ridges in this pommel as well, but I didn't. One of the things that, I mean, obviously, let's get a closer look at this camera ring. So this is a Leitz camera ring, lens ring. Just really, really, really cool. One of the things that I had a hard time deciding was whether or not I wanted to weather this. And I chose to keep it clean. For now, I'm actually still wavering back and forth on whether or not I want to go ahead and weather it. But I kept it clean just because I really love this brushed aluminum on copper two-tone look. I think it looks really, really classy. It looks really cool. But I might go back and weather it. Who knows, right? But yeah, just an awesome, awesome looking hilt. These are those switches that I was talking about. Phil also included his custom copper hat momentary switches with this. But I saw Phil installed his personal with these lit tactile switches, and I really liked the way that looked. So I reached out to him and asked him to send me some, and he machined them down a little bit and sent them to me. Excuse me. Everything is just buttery smooth. All of the threads are perfect. All the machining is perfectly finished. It's just such a cool looking hilt, right? Okay. I mean, there's just a lot going on in this emitter. There's an inner shroud in this emitter. A lot of work went into machining these parts, right? And again, they all are perfect. All right, so let's get a look at this chassis, this completely over the top and unnecessary chassis. Okay. All right, so here's the chassis. I decided to weather all of the brass parts. This is another decision that I had to make, whether or not to keep them polished or weathered. I like weathering my brass because it really, really brings out all of these small minor details in the design. All right. So everything's been weathered. I also did a pass of pewter and black rub and buff on my chassis just to give it a dull gunmetal look. Okay. And that is it. So here's the board cover. Here's the board cover. Gull wing doors, like a Mercedes, like an old Mercedes. What is that, a CL10 or something? I don't remember the exact model. But yeah, completely unnecessary, over the top. So to get your board, let me take my battery out here. To get your board, you just kind of push it forward, and now you can get at your SD card and your USB port, okay? And then put it back down, pull it forward into those forks, and you're ready to go. And these are just held in place with magnets, okay? Battery tray, again, there is that ribbed section that I broke up the battery compartment with. Happy that came out. I'm gonna go ahead and put my battery in. So this was already on. Here's that kill switch with that kill cap or decorative kill cap, kill switch cap. Getting tongue-tied over here. Okay, and there's that 2020 NeoPixel strip and LEDs lit, okay? All right. I'm gonna leave the grip off, and we are gonna come down to the bottom and get a better look at this chassis. So here we go. A lot of detail in those side panels. I really like how those came out. And then, of course, our doors, completely unnecessary doors. You know, I'm laughing at myself, but I actually am kind of proud. I'm kind of proud of how this design came out. I am. Right, and there's that 2020 strip. So I'm going to go ahead and put this grip back on. So we can see that shine through in the grip. Okay. Yeah, this thing sounds so gnarly. Lit switches up top really complete that speeder look, in my opinion. Okay. Let's go ahead and put a blade in it. Okay, so this will take a 1-inch blade, nice deep blade socket. There is a knurled thumb screw around front that Phil has incorporated into the design that will serve as my blade retention. So I'm going to tighten that, and we are ready to go. I'm looking up at my fan because it is on today, and not that this is too long. I've just been traumatized. Yeah, this thing sounds so good. So I think I set, this is Son of Corellia by Kyberphonic. I think I've set this up with dual phase. If I could activate it. Here we go, ready? There we go. Okay. Let's see what else we put on here. This is actually one of TJ from Ignition Saber Company's fonts. I did an install for TJ recently, and he sent me a couple of his custom fonts, so I selfishly put one on my personal board. Hey, listen, this hilt. There are a few hilts out there that really stand out to me as far as like memorable sound, right? So firstly, my Corcris sounds phenomenal. Oh, my Hearts of Kyber Coda, phenomenally sounding hilt. Strangely enough, my Gen 1 Mara Jade from Shadowfoil, this thing sounds so good. I was shocked at how good it sounds. I mean, there's a couple other ones out there, but yeah, it sounds great. It's loud, chunky, deep. Let's keep going here.
You can't run.
Okay. One more.
Speeder horn.
This is BK's Speeder Horn. And I think I set this one up with dual phase as well. Yep. Another great speeder font. Okay. So there's that grip all lit up with our switches. All right, I'm going to do one more because this thing's a hell of a lot of fun to spin around.
I am Jordan Arnwood.
Yo. Wow. It's been a while since a hilt made me smile like that. This sounds so good, man. All right, I got to do one more. Let's see. I can't remember what else is on here. Let's see.
Dissonance.
Oh, this is one of my favorite fonts. This is Dissonance from K-Sith. And this thing is so aggressive. The swing on this. Yo. Forget about it. Hey, forget about it over here. Oh, man. It's so good. So anyway, that is the camera speeder from Phil over at Kalymian Customs Sabers. Just an awesome, awesome speeder hilt. Yeah, love this one, right? So anyhow, to Phil, thank you for doing these modifications on this hilt. Thank you for making such a great product. If anyone has any questions about this chassis or anything really, please do not be a stranger. For those of you who do have this hilt and are interested in this chassis, I will make it available on my website for purchase if anyone wants one. But other than that, that's all I've got. So to everybody, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the support. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.